If, one morning, an entire city froze in fear, staring up at the sky, if strange things suddenly appeared around the sun, things no one had ever seen before. Orbs, crosses, long cylinders, blood-red colors, and then it seemed as if a war had broken out in the heavens. What would you call it? A natural phenomenon, a mass illusion, or a mystery recorded in human history that we still do not fully understand today. Welcome to Myth Xray. Today, we take you back to the morning of April 14th, 1561, a morning that planted such deep fear in the hearts of the people of Nuremberg, Germany, that even centuries later, the event remains a subject of debate, curiosity, and amazement. This is the story that some call a sign from the heavens, some call a strange act of nature, and others call history's first UFO mystery. This is the story of the Nuremberg celestial event. Imagine this is 16th century Europe. Modern science does not yet exist in the form we know today. There is no television, no cameras, no social media, and no way to instantly share a strange sight with the whole world. People looked at nature and tried to find meaning in it. Anything unusual seen in the sky was not treated as just weather or a trick of light. Instead, it was often seen as a sign from God, a warning, or a message about what was to come. And in those days, Nuremberg was an important city in Europe. Trade, craftsmanship, religious conflict, and political tension, all of it was present there. People were busy with their daily lives, but there was also a constant uncertainty in their hearts. It was an era when wars, diseases, religious divisions, and belief in heavenly signs were all part of everyday thinking. Then came that morning. On the morning of April 14th, 1561, at sunrise, as the people of the city were stepping out of their homes, some heading toward the market, some going to work, and some simply watching the morning light, suddenly, many people saw something strange in the sky. It is said that near the sun, in the air, within the light, round shapes began to appear. At first, perhaps people thought it was an illusion, but then, along with those round objects, long cylindrical shapes also began to appear. Some people saw cross-like forms, some saw crescent-like shapes, and others felt as if these things were moving against one another in the sky. This was not just a brief flash. It was so visible that many people across the city began watching it. Eyes turned upward, conversations stopped, hearts began to race, and then, according to the account, it seemed as though these shapes were crashing into one another, as if they were chasing each other, as if the sky itself had turned into a strange battlefield. Just imagine, for an ordinary person of that era, how terrifying this sight must have been. They did not know what it was. They could not describe it in scientific language, and they could not understand whether what was happening before their eyes was reality, an illusion of light, or some heavenly message. The event became famous mainly because of one man, Hans Glaser. Hans Glaser was a printer and broadsheet publisher. After the event, he published an illustrated news sheet in which he not only described the scene in words, but also presented an image of it through a woodcut print. It is because of that old printed account that we know about this event today. In the image, different shapes can be seen in the sky. Orbs, crosses, long box-like cylinders, and a black, long, spear-like object. According to Hans Glaser, all of this appeared around the sun. Some shapes seemed to emerge from inside others. Some appeared to move toward one another. And then, in the end, he wrote that these things seemed to fall toward the earth and disappeared in what looked like smoke or burning. Now, stop and think for a moment. Did a war really take place in the sky? Did something truly fall to the ground? Or did people interpret sunlight, clouds, and atmospheric effects through the lens of their fear, faith, and imagination? That is exactly what makes this event so fascinating. How did people understand it? Today, if we saw a strange event in the sky, we might quickly say, it must be some weather phenomenon. It's probably lens flare. It's an optical illusion. But in 1561, it was not like that. At that time, people did not see the sky as just empty space. They saw it as a spiritual language. If something unusual appeared, it was often taken as a divine warning. That is why Hans Glaser's account was not merely a report of the sight. It also carried a message. People were advised to repent, to turn away from their sins, and to return to God. In other words, the people of that time were not calling it merely strange light. They were treating it as a sign, and that helps us understand the mindset of that era. Now we come to the question that has made this event so famous in modern times. Was it a UFO? Today, many people count the Nuremberg event among the oldest UFO sightings in history. According to them, the movement of different shapes in the sky, the battle-like scene, and then the black spear-like object. All of this may point toward non-human technology or the presence of extraterrestrial beings and to buffet. If we read only the description, the scene really does feel stranger than an ordinary weather event. Orbs, cylinders, flying shapes, collisions. Then a large black object. Hearing all this, the modern mind immediately starts thinking about UFOs. But the problem is that applying modern ideas to ancient history is not always accurate. The people of 1561 did not know the word UFO. They were describing the scene according to the language, religious symbols, and fears of their own time. That is why some experts say we should not interpret this event through modern sci-fi thinking, but rather understand it within the worldview of its own age. So what could the scientific explanation be? According to many historians, researchers, and atmospheric experts, the Nuremberg event was most likely an atmospheric optical phenomenon. For example, sundogs, a la phenomena, the reflection of sunlight through tiny ice crystals, rings of light and bright shapes forming around the sun. Sometimes, in cold atmospheric conditions, strange forms can appear around the sun that would easily astonish an ordinary observer. And if clouds, angles of light, and visual distortion are added to that, a person may perceive different shapes, colors, and movements. Now, if that same sight is seen in an era where scientific knowledge is limited, religious interpretations dominate, and people strongly believe in heavenly signs, then even a natural display of light can turn into a war in the sky. Many experts find this explanation reasonable, but one problem still remains. If it was only a halo phenomenon, then why did so many different people describe it in such a dramatic way? And why did Hans Glaser publish it in such detail? Was that simply the influence of religious language? Or was something truly seen that was more complex than an ordinary light display? Collective fear or collective observation? The human mind is strange. If one person sees something unclear with fear, and another person also becomes frightened after seeing it, then both minds begin to give that scene even stronger meaning. Today, we might call this collective interpretation. It is possible that something unusual really did appear in the sky, but people's minds turned it into a battle. It is also possible that the shapes seen in the sunlight were indeed strange, but the intensity of their movement or collision became exaggerated later in the retelling. In other words, the original event may have been one thing, and the story of it may have become something else over time. And that is exactly what happens with many mysteries in history. We do not get the event itself. We get its description. And in every description, human, fear, belief, time period, and imagination are all involved. The black spear-like object, the most mysterious part in this entire event. One thing is considered the most mysterious, that black, long, spear-like object. Many people use this detail as the basis for saying, this could not have been an ordinary halo phenomenon, because bright circles, rings of light, or glowing forms around the sun, that part can be understood. But one long, dark, clearly defined object. Some researchers say it may have been a symbolic addition in the image, meaning Hans Glaser may have shown it that way to make the scene feel more meaningful and dramatic. Others say it could have been a special type of cloud formation. And some people say, perhaps this is the one detail whose true nature we still do not understand, because sometimes a single detail is enough to transform an ordinary story into an extraordinary one. Did anything really fall to the ground? The account also gives the impression that some shapes fell toward the earth and then vanished like smoke. If that truly happened, then the question is, did people search for evidence Is there any written record saying something was found on the ground? Here, history falls silent. We have no strong evidence that any physical object actually fell to the ground. No preserved sample, no clear document, no proof strong enough to confirm that claim with certainty. And that lack of evidence is what makes this event not a proven fact, but a historical mystery. What is the real power of this event? Perhaps the true power of the Nuremberg event is not whether we can prove it was a UFO or not, but that it tells us something important about human nature. When we see something beyond our understanding, we try to make sense of it through our beliefs, our fears, and our language. In 1561, people called it a heavenly sign. Today, some people call it a UFO. Tomorrow, perhaps a new interpretation will appear. The event may remain the same, but human interpretation keeps changing with time. And that is why the Nuremberg event is not just an old report, but a mirror in which every age sees its own questions. Even after centuries, the question is still alive. More than 400 years have passed. The city has changed. The world has changed. Science has advanced. Humanity has reached the moon. We have sent missions into space, looked at galaxies through telescopes. Yet the morning of April 14, 1561, still holds one silent question. What did the people actually see? Was it only light? Was it some astonishing atmospheric phenomena? Was it a religious interpretation shaped by frightened minds? Or was there really something in the skies over Nuremberg that morning that lay beyond our ordinary understanding? We do not have a complete answer, but we do have a complete mystery. And sometimes the power of a mystery lies in the fact that it is never fully solved. So friends, whatever happened in Nuremberg on the morning of April 14, 1561, it became an event that history preserved, but never fully understood. On one side stands the interpretation of a deeply religious age. On the other, modern UFO theories. And between them stands an old illustrated piece of evidence, which seems to tell us only this: something unusual was definitely seen. But what was it? That decision is still in your hands. Was it only a play of light, or was there truly something in the sky that humanity was not yet ready to understand?